Actually, I am a Chinese immigrant who survived communism, and under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold communism to them, and 20 million people died, murdered during his Cultural Revolution. So my question to you, David, is that can you guarantee me, a gun owner, our government in the U.S., in D.C., will never become a tyrannical government? Can you guarantee that to me?
There's no way I can ever guarantee that any government will not be tyrannical.
Well, then the debate on gun control is over, because I will never give up my guns. Never. And you should go to China to...
Somebody sued David Hogg. He's an officer of the Democratic National Committee. He is the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he's running against other Democrats. I would like to know, and you went to law school, does he have a fiduciary duty toward Democrats? If you work for News Nation, you can't promote CNN. That's because you work for somebody else. You have a fiduciary duty to your employer, which anybody can understand. He's being paid to run against other Democrats. I think it's an outrage. I don't know if I have standing, but I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp, if you ask me.
Sue his ass, Jim. I'll have you on the show to talk about it.
I might. I don't know if I have standing, but somebody can standing.
Sue his punk ass. Started right on this show.
Well, we got more Democrat infighting, but now it's getting real deep. I mean, the Democrat Party is imploding right before our eyes. Never, ever in the history of American politics have we seen anything like this. Right now, in a new poll that just came out, I believe it was on CNN, the Democrat Party approval rating right now is 21%. Meaning it's probably much lower than that. You know how the mainstream media does. Remember, Kamala Harris was super high the entire election, and then that night she gets blown out all over the place. So we know that the mainstream media in these polls are not very reliable. They say Trump is he at 53% with me. Trump is probably closer to 60 or even above that. Joe Biden, they had him at 32% for like 8 months. As things got worse and worse and worse, they never went below that 32% because they knew he was already one of the lowest rating next to Jimmy Carter. But that would have tanked their whole narrative of having this great administration. But this one is even more impactful. And here's why. The new regime is taking over the Democrat Party, and that's the extreme left wing of the party. That's the squad, the AOCs. And now they got this new young gunslinger named David Hogg. And I'm going to get into who David Hogg is because David Hogg plays a huge part in this whole Democrat thing. And you may be familiar with him about a situation that happened, a huge national tragedy that happened. And this is how David Hogg got his claim to fame. And I'll get into that. But real quick, let me show you the premise of what's going on. Now, you heard James Carville talk about David Hogg, and he's the VP. Should I say the co-chair of the Democratic National Convention? That's right. He's the second in charge of the entire DNC. And he's a young man, something like 23 years old. And like I said, remember, he got his claim to fame through a national tragedy. And I'll get into that because there's questions behind that. But let's look at this real quick, and it'll show you the breakdown of what's going on. Then I'm going to show you video clips of who David Hogg is and David Hogg being exposed and what else James Carville had to say that has got the Democrat Party. It ricocheted throughout the party, and now the knives are really out. You thought Julius Caesar was bad. Wait till you see what's happening with the Democrat Party right now. So through Spaceballs X, it would appear David Hogg did something very naughty that he knows is about to come out. He's trying to get out in front of something. What do you think it is? Sexual assault or financial crimes? I bet it's financial crimes. What say you all? Remember, on YouTube, using some certain words, you get penalized. So I say sexual or certain things. I'm not mispronouncing it on purpose. It's for YouTube. So this is a post that David Hogg put out. That's David Hogg, and I'll go into David Hogg. Everyone in our party says they want to start winning again, and they do. But that simply will not be possible with our current set of leaders, too many of which are asleep at the wheel, out of touch, and ineffective. As a result, there are likely going to be stories in the next few days and weeks about me and leaders we deserve that will aim to destroy my reputation in order to weaken this effort. Many of them will be lies. Many of them will be contortions of the truth because people want to maintain the status quo, even though it is not working. We cannot afford to do that. We are not going to let that happen. So David Hogg, as of right now, apparently, and this was just on the 16th, he apparently has a mission to raise $20 million and to primary and run against all the Democrat leadership. The traditional Democrats that have helped lead this country on the ground, well, they think it'll be even better if we put the left-wing extremists in charge of that party. They feel like it'll be even better when in reality, every single issue, they're on the opposite side. Now, who is David Hogg? The world was introduced to David Hogg through the Parkland tragedy years ago. Remember the Parkland school, pow, 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 where a lot happened with all of the young people. Now, here's the kicker with David Hogg. He was the face of this thing. They had him out, and he was doing all of these interviews and whatnot, but David Hogg may have got exposed. And I say may because the question is still in the air on this. There are some who say David Hogg was a paid crisis actor. There are some who say that he unnecessarily got to shine when he may have been in the school, but he was nowhere near what happened. So how did he become the face of it? And there's another piece of David Hogg's past that really brings into question whether he's a crisis actor, which he's been alleged. It's not me alleging it. It's been other people all over the internet. They consider it to be a right-wing conspiracy. But if you know, like I know, or if history has shown us anything, things today that they call a right-wing conspiracy oftentimes have manifested to be true. I'm not saying that about this situation, but there's a whole lot of things to look at. And I'm going to show you some of the proof that was online that kind of brings this into question. So just bear with me. School shooting survivor forced to respond to claims that he's a crisis actor. And I'm reading just a little bit of this, then I'll get into the video. In the wake of last week's Stoneman Douglas school pow pow, in which 17 people were unalived, the young survivors of the attack have become some of the most outspoken advocates for stricter pow pow control. So all of a sudden, from Parkland shooting, this kid became the face of Second Amendment control. I mean, he speaks out against it. He's against it. He thinks nobody should have a pow pow to protect their home or anything. This young person who had never had a home, never had a family to protect, was telling adults how foolish they are for wanting to have their Second Amendment rights. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid, hit that like button, because two things: I'll never ask you for a cash out or a super chat, but you hitting that like button, it really does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And then once you do, you can hit the notifications and then make sure that you select all. And that way, when I upload new videos, you get notified. As a result, they have been branded crisis actors, because all of a sudden from this tragedy, now you're just this spokesman on every network. That doesn't happen just organically a lot of times. They're crisis actors who are paid to stimulate an attack in order to push an agenda. In this case, pow pow control. The conspiracy theorists, this line of thinking also cropped up after the Sandy Hook situation, in which 20 young people were unalived. Now, here's the part where it really gets, iffy. One such student is 17-year-old David Hogg, whose father's former profession as an FBI agent has made him a particular target for those conspiracy theorists. Now, the #1 trending video on YouTube right now is accusing David Hogg of being a crisis actor, and even Donald Trump Jr. conspicuously liked a tweet attacking the teenager. So let me show you this video clip of David Hogg being interviewed after the unfortunate situation. This person, Gain of Fauci, says, "I'll be posting this video every week until David Hogg finally responds to it." So let's take a look right here of David Hogg when he was speaking with interviewers, and you tell me if this seems a little weird or shady or not.
One of them went into a bathroom in the same, I believe, in the same hallway as the shooter.
I believe.
One of them went into the same bathroom, I believe, as the hallway shooter. He was in there at the same time, and he was in the bathroom, and he didn't know if he was going to live. Because we had had a fire alarm earlier that day, and that was a drill. So we thought this was a drill too, just another one. Because we have a lot of fire alarms, a lot of fire drills at the school. After we heard the first gunshot, we initially thought it was a drill. Actually, that was a bad choice. Oh, it's okay, you're fine. Actually, that was a bad choice because the janitor, sorry.
It's okay, you're fine, David, you're fine.
Honestly, when I was going out, I was kind of in, I wasn't, hold on. It's okay. When I was going out, I was in shock.
Yes, I don't know how to put this in perspective. Okay.
So most of my friends that made it out.
Now, that's the video that was going around the internet that kind of made people start questioning, like, dude, if you're really there, why are you having so many issues recounting the story? Why are you stopping, pulling back, and like you're rehearsing your thing? Typically when people are in a traumatic situation, it's either difficult for them to explain it, or, they're either laser focused on it, or they just, don't remember anything. And I know people deal with trauma in different ways, but if you've ever looked at crisis actors or psyops, they're called psyops, it is a real thing that happens. And it's happened in this country. There are actually schools that train these people where they do these exercises where they mimic an actual event, a terrible event, but it's all acting. And there have been allegedly things like this that have happened that somehow made it to a news report and was put on the news as if it's real. And most people don't know that President Obama, he signed into law the NDAA, which made it legal for a news media to just completely fabricate and make up stories and put it on the news. Look it up. It's the NDAA. Obama authorized it right when he was leaving office, coincidentally, when Trump was taking over, which means that they legalized propaganda by the media. It does not have to be real news, and they could put it out, and they did not face any risk of backlash or losing their licenses. It's the NDAA. Terrible thing that was signed into law. It legalized propaganda. So that's David Hogg, right? Now, I want to show you this. Remember I said that he was a young person and he was talking all this gun control stuff. Well, here, this Chinese immigrant calmly dismantles his whole gun control thing. Because remember, like I said, he's a young kid trying to tell adults how terrible guns are. Listen to this lady's argument and tell me what you think about it.
It only took one question for this woman to end this man's gun control debate.
Actually, I am a Chinese immigrant who survived communism. And under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold communism to them. And 20 million people died, murdered during his Cultural Revolution. So my question to you, David, is that can you guarantee me, a gun owner, our government in the US, in DC, will never become a tyrannical government? Can you guarantee that to me?
There's no way I can ever guarantee that any government will not be tyrannical.
Well, then the debate on gun control is over, because I will never give up my guns. Never. And you should go to China to see how gun control works for dictatorship of CCP.
She cleaned his clock, because that's the purpose of the Second Amendment. It has nothing to do with people just wanting to have it. And it is to protect you against criminals, but it's ultimately for protection against your government. That's what the founding fathers created it for, because in those days when England and some of those other places where the government could just come in and they would just take your family members, take your stuff and whatever, or if they turn tyrannical and they're doing things that aren't right, that aren't legal, how you going to protect yourself and your family? That's what it's for, is to protect us against the government more so than from each other, even though it does help to protect us from those bad actors that are out there. But you see how she went in and just straight slayed his whole argument. So it was funny how after Parkland, he just became the poster child. And tell me in the comments, do you believe, based on that clip you saw, again, we're just alleging this, do you believe, did that look a little crisis actorish to you? Or did that look like an authentic person telling their story about an event? And what happened at Parkland was horrible. But people use certain tragedies as opportunities to springboard themselves. Same thing with Greta Thunberg. Same thing happened with BLM. Out of a tragedy, we get these spokespeople that pop up. Next thing you know, they're nothing but shysters, race hustlers, race baiters that did nothing more than milk the people for the dollar. Now, listen to James Carville as he's going to continue laying out his beef with David Hogg. Let me go back right here. I'm not gonna play the whole video, but I'll let James cook a little bit so you can hear exactly what James proposes. This is what he proposes should happen within the Democrat Party, and you tell me if you think it's gonna take place. Because James still holds weight. He still holds weight within the party. So tell me if you think what he says makes sense or not.
Things up here for just a second. One is David Hogg. Who's David Hogg? David Hogg is vice chair of the DNC. He was a survivor of the Marjorie Douglas Stoneham catastrophe, apocalypse, whatever you call it, mass murder. And he is a young, but very progressive, in a hurry young man, fine. And he is trying to raise money to primary other Democrats. All right, now wait a minute. Let's get this straight. He is the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he is talking about raising $20 million to primary other Democrats. Well, when I look at the DNC, ideally it should be an organization that's trying to beat Republicans, not other Democrats. And if you want to have a kind of squad thing where you go, they never run against Republicans. Understand that. The squad never, ever runs against a Republican.
With the exception of AOC.
Who did she run against?
You know, she ran against a bunch of Republicans in the congressional elections last.
She helped a plus 30, but she helped. I think
she helped. No, but your point's right.
She doesn't. When you're in a plus 30 Democratic district, I just don't pay attention to you. I understand that, and somebody's got to win, but when you're talking about using the power of the DNC, whatever power it has, it's not very much, But you're using that, and we're paying, Democratic donors are paying David Hogg's salary, they're paying David Hogg's staff, and he wants to run against other Democrats. Well, that's America. Run against who the fuck you want to, but don't resign your position. Have guts, man. Have guts. Stand your ground. And I don't think that I don't think that's part of the Democratic coalition. I don't think they're redeemable. I don't think they want to be redeemed. Then I go back to the emphasis of something called American Voices that is supported by mainstream Democratic groups that had 12 at a meeting this month, April of this year, where they had bowls of buttons where you could put your pronoun and wear your button. I don't think these people get it. I don't think they ever will get it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it now. I think we ought to think about just having a schism. I think these people should get their own party. Don't call it anything Democratic. Call it the Socialist Urban Justice Community Unity Party of the whatever. Right. And then after the election, maybe we can have negotiations, or you can, vote for a Democrat to be the speaker if we win. But I actually think that it might be at a point where there are certain elements in a Democratic coalition that we just can't live in the same room with these people.
What do you think about that? Do you agree with James? Do you think that that's something that makes sense, where they should just split it off and that progressive extreme leftists start their own thing? Like he said, the Socialist Party, the Socialist whatever, Socialist BLM, Race Baiter Party, whatever it is, and leave the Democrats? Because even today's modern, quote unquote, modern Democrats are extreme leftists. Look at what that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen just did. Went over to El Salvador, got embarrassed, got sent right back home with egg on his face. But the fact that the senator from Maryland, who literally just had a trial going on this week in his state for a unalived mother of 5, Rachel Morin, where that illegal immigrant was also from El Salvador, was found guilty of first-degree unaliving. He didn't go to the trial. He didn't meet with the family. He didn't send his condolences, none whatsoever, because he was on a plane heading to El Salvador to go fight on the behalf of the wife and children of the illegal immigrant gang member who's from El Salvador with 2 deportation orders to leave the country. That's who he went to go represent. And he's considered a more moderate Democrat. He's not even considered a far leftist, extremist, libtard member of the squad. So if that's where if the center of the Democrat Party is far left, that means that the freaking progressive side is all the way on the other side of the planet. And, there's nothing good. So I love the fact that AOC and Bernie are going out. And the media is so dishonest. They're holding these rallies in deep blue areas, even in Idaho, where they were. There are pockets in Idaho where you got heavy Democrat support. That's all they did. And what they do, they take a camera shot where they get the first 4 or 5 rows, and they got the person on stage with some people back there, and they say, oh, look at how packed that rally is, a la Kamala Harris. Remember, we went through that with Kamala Harris. We went through that with Biden. The camera shows like it's just packed in the gym, but there's another independent journalist back there with their phone and pans out, and what you see is right behind those 3 or 4 rows, which were filled up with the media, there's nobody there. But a skilled camera person, they can make it look like it's packed. But this is what James Carville is pitching, because inside the Democrat Party, it's an uproar. They're not getting along. The young people are not getting along with the older folks. The progressive wing wants them to be more aggressive. They want the Democrats to fight Trump on everything. They want them to not work with them on anything. And guess what? Guess who they're listening to? That fringe wing of their party, when most Democrats are saying, hey, y'all, when the man does something good and you say that it's bad, you just look crazy. You get more credibility if you at least acknowledge when things that are done good are working. If you acknowledge that, you'll gain more credibility. But to act like the border being secure is a bad thing, that's terrible. To act like men being in women's sports is a good thing, that's terrible. To act like children getting their bodies permanently mutilated is a good thing, that's terrible. So the Democrats are on the wrong side of every issue, and they're doubling down on this. They're doubling down, pushing the whole line about illegal immigrant wasn't supposed to have been deported. Yes, he was. There was an order not to deport him back to El Salvador because he feared being unalived by a rival gang. And I don't know if you saw, but the White House released all types of documents on that to just shut the whole mainstream media talking points down. But I just wanted to bring this just to show, man, Team MAGA, we are winning. And you know how we know we're winning? Not only just from the egg prices going down and all of the investments and the tariffs got the other countries coming back to negotiate. The Democrat Party is in complete turmoil. They don't know what to do. Everything they're standing for is not working, and their leadership is saying, it's not the message, it's the people. So they keep saying it's the people's fault for not understanding how good the Democrats are. I mean, they tell you. They tell you they're doing a good job. They tell you that this illegal immigrant should be here, and he's a Maryland man. Well, more, they consider him more of a Maryland man than they do Rachel Morin, then they consider her a Maryland woman. They give this illegal immigrant more credibility than they do an actual homegrown American citizen who paid taxes, whose family lived in that state. That's how corrupt and how bizarre and how unhinged these people are. But hey, I digress from that. But I just wanted to bring this to you and let you know, have no fear. Regardless of what the media is saying, Trump's poll numbers are soaring. The Democrats' poll numbers are in the dumps, and things are looking real good for us now. We just got to get them to stop trying to root for China and freaking people out. I said it in another video. I got a relative that is just panicked out, believing that the government is just snatching people up, shipping them off. It's crazy. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, make sure you be safe and be great. I'm Brian Maxwell. Thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And as always, I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.